سلطات الحكومة.
الاستقالة كان ينبغي أن تحصل منذ زمن طويل.
ماذا عن آلاف الخبراء الروس والإيرانيين ومقاتلي حزب الله؟
Good afternoon. It is Monday, April 1st. I'm Yumna Nofal, and these are today's headlines. Future Movement says it will not submit the candidacy of any lawmaker for the elections prior to an agreement among the parties affiliated in the March 14th alliance. Fierce fighting between Syrian rebels and regime forces sparks an exodus of residents from the northern city of Aleppo. And 2 people die in Shanghai after contracting a strain of avian influenza, or bird flu, a virus contaminating humans for the first time ever. The Future Movement will not submit the candidacy of any lawmaker for the parliamentary elections prior to an agreement among the parties affiliated in the March 14th alliance. This is according to lawmaker Ahmed Fatfat. He pointed out that submitting the candidacy of MPs requires a consensus over the new electoral law. Media reports said on Sunday that Progressive Socialist Party leader MP Walid Jumblat and the members of his National Struggle Front parliamentary bloc will submit their candidacies for the parliamentary elections to the Interior Ministry tomorrow. The rival parties have so far failed to agree on an electoral draft law, and the resignation of Prime Minister Najib Mikati last week complicated the political crisis in Lebanon. Fatfat reiterated that elections must be held on time, noting that if the opposition and March 8 majority, led by Hezbollah, fail to agree on an electoral law, then polls could be postponed for a little while. Caretaker Social Affairs Minister Wael Abu Faour said that the government that will replace the newly resigned cabinet must respect the dissociation policy. Abu Faour said the best choice is to form a national unity government that will keep the Babda Declaration, which stipulates away from regional and international conflicts as its central focus. The only course of action available is to try to diligently as possible not to import serious conflict to Lebanon, the minister said in the recently resigned cabinet. Abu Faour went on to explain why, in his opinion, Prime Minister Mikati stepped down from his post. The cabinet resigned for one reason, he said, which is that some parties wanted to target an institution that has a pivotal role in preserving Lebanon's security and stability, in reference to the internal security forces. Progressive Socialist Party leader MP Walid Jumblat and the members of his National Struggle Front parliamentary bloc will officially submit their candidacies. They want to run in the upcoming elections, according to PSP Secretary General Zafar Nasser. Lawmakers in the party will file their nominations this week because they insist the elections must be held on time. They added that the 6 PSP members, including Jumblat, had completed and signed their candidacy applications. In early March, the Interior Ministry in Beirut opened its doors for those seeking to register as candidates for the 2013 elections. The deadline for the submission of candidacy application is April 10th, and those seeking to withdraw their candidacy have until April 25th. The PSP official said the party members would file their applications before the constitutional deadline. A meeting was held today between the March 8 Alliance Christians and a delegation from Hezbollah at the residence of Free Patriotic Movement leader MP Michel Sleiman in Rabie. The meeting included Marada Movement leader MP Sleiman Frangieh, ex-minister Youssef Saadeh, FPM caretaker Energy Minister Jabran Basil, Tajnak Party MP Hagab Pakradonian, political aide of the Hezbollah chief Hussein Khalil, and Hezbollah liaison and coordination officer Wafi Safa. The state-run national news agency quoted Pakradonian as saying consultations are ongoing. However, officials left the residence of Michel Aoun without making any statement. Later, Frangieh, Saadeh, Safa, and Khalil headed to Ain al-Tine for talks with Speaker Nabih Berri. The talks came ahead of the April 5th and 6th binding consultations between President Sleiman and the parliamentary blocs and independents on the name of the PM designate after Prime Minister Mikati resigned last week. French President François Hollande expresses hope that Lebanon's sovereignty and stability will remain, calling on all politicians to abide by the Babda Declaration. According to Voice of Lebanon Radio, Hollande contacted his Lebanese counterpart Michel Sleiman to congratulate him on Easter Day, stressing the importance of implementing the dissociation policy. The French president urged Sleiman to safeguard Lebanon from the negative repercussions of the turmoil in Syria and not to interfere in affairs of other countries. In the Babda Declaration, 16 political leaders from both March 8 and March 14 agreed to avoid rhetoric that fuels sectarian incitement. Fierce fighting between Syrian rebels and regime forces have sparked an exodus of residents from the Sheikh al-Maqsad district of the northern city of Aleppo. Violence also engulfed areas in and around Damascus in Syria, where children were among 8 civilians killed in shelling of Kafar Bana village. And a missile, they said, slammed into Yarmouk Palestinian refugee camp in Damascus, costing more casualties. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights watchdog reported that at least 62 people, more than half of them civilians, were killed nationwide on Easter Sunday. Battles have been raging in the strategic, predominantly Kurdish neighborhood since Friday as regime troops try to prevent rebels from advancing into the district. The battles have killed so far at least 43 people, including 15 civilians, 19 soldiers and pro-regime fighters, as well as 9 rebels. Palestinian and international runners are getting some last-minute training ahead of the first full marathon to take place in the occupied West Bank. The Right to Movement Palestine Marathon is due to begin on April 21st in the West Bank city of Bethlehem, the revered birthplace of Jesus. The race will take the runners on a 4-loop street course for the full marathon, a 2 or a 1-loop course for the half marathon, and 10K race. A group of at least 20 young people have been gathering twice a week outside the villa of Beit Jala near Bethlehem to train on a dirt road over steep hills dotted with olive trees. Participants say most of them have no professional experience with running marathons, but have been encouraged by their gradual improvement over the past weeks. Coming up next, it's April Fools, and we've got some evil ideas to mess with your close ones. Stay tuned. Welcome back. South Korean President Park Geun-hye has vowed strong retaliation to any provocation by North Korea. This comes after Pyongyang said it was entering a state of war with its rival. In a meeting with senior military officials and Defense Minister Kim Kwon-jin, Park said she took the nearly daily stream of bellicose threats emanating from the North very seriously. Park, who is a conservative who had advocated cautious engagement with the North during her election campaign, has taken a more hardline position since assuming office in February. On another note, North Korean industry officials call for economic expansion alongside nuclear development in the wake of United Nations sanctions imposed for its February nuclear test. 8 people were killed when a suicide truck bomber struck a police headquarters in Saddam Hussein's hometown of Tikrit in Iraq. Another 14 people were injured when the attacker detonated a tanker truck in the city north of Baghdad. Sources say most of the casualties in the attack, which struck in morning rush hour, were police. But so far, no group has claimed responsibility. The bombing comes ahead of provincial elections scheduled for April 20th, the country's first poll since a parliamentary vote in March of 2010. In other international news, India's highest court has dismissed Swiss drug maker Novartis AG's petition seeking patent protection for a cancer drug. In a landmark judgment, the Supreme Court said that the drug, called Glivec, failed to qualify for a patent according to Indian law. Since 2006, Novartis was challenging the Indian government to demand protection against Indian companies copying its drugs. Well, 3 years later, it took its challenge against the law that bans patents on newer forms of known drugs to the Supreme Court. Reporters say the ruling is a huge disappointment for Novartis as it allows Indian companies to continue producing cheaper generic medicine for domestic and international consumers. This case is the most high-profile of several patent battles being waged in India. Let's take a look for headlines around the world. Well, senior advisor to Libyan Prime Minister Ali Zaidan has been grabbed from his car by unknown assailants on the outskirts of Tripoli. Government sources say Muhammad Ali Ghatous was seized after passing a checkpoint into the eastern Tripoli suburb of Tajura. They added he has been off the radar since he last spoke to his family on the phone from his car before he was abducted. An investigation to find him is currently underway. 2 people in Shanghai have died after contracting a strain of avian influenza, or bird flu, that had never been passed to humans before. A local news agency reported the 2 men, aged 87 and 27, became sick late February and died earlier this month. Shanghai residents expressed concern that the incidents had been made public weeks after their deaths and said they hoped for more government transparency. There are currently no known vaccines against the virus. And 3 people were killed and 25 injured in a 75-vehicle pileup along Virginia Highway in the United States. The Virginia Department of Transportation said the accident occurred in the Fancy Gap Mountain area of Virginia. The source added the accident backed up traffic for 8 miles. Police said heavy fog was to blame for the accident. Flash floods caused destruction and kill at least 10 people in Mauritius. Most of the victims were trapped in an underpass leading to the Codon waterfront. Amateur videos showed flooded streets and cars submerged underwater in the capital city. The country has declared a day of mourning following the incident, and the Mauritius Meteorological Service say more downpours could be on the way. Eighty-year-old Japanese mountain climber Yoshiro Miura is set to try to break the world record for the oldest man to climb Mount Everest. The 80-year-old Japanese has skied down the highest mountains on each of the 7 continents. He had also climbed to the Everest summit in 2003 and 2008 and had skied down from an altitude of 8,000 meters in 1970. The climber, who has had heart surgery 4 times before, will be closely supervised by a doctor. Miura and a 9-person team plan to summit next month, climbing up the standard Southeast Ridge route. He said it was crucial that those attempting to conquer Everest never give up. Well, level up your April Fool's game. Here are some evil ways to really mess with your friends and family this April 1st. Enjoy the pranks.
Welcome to Quick and Evil April Fool's Pranks. We've got 7 sinful ways to prank your friends and family this April 1st. Want to stick it to your roommate? Grab his deodorant and pull out the rest. Now press the empty container into a large stick of butter. Clean it up a bit and make it look used. Replace the cap and wait for your roommate to bake for 2 hours. Want to really mess with your coworkers? Make about 10 copies of a paperclip and load the paper back into the machine. Every time someone goes to make a copy, there's going to be a phantom paperclip on the paper itself. Better inform IT in advance. And this one's for the ladies. Terrify your boyfriend or husband by grabbing a cheap pregnancy test and popping it apart. Draw 2 solid red lines on the indicator and leave the test out to be found. Don't blame me if you break up when he finds out it's fake. And here's the old Cadbury egg trick. Melt some chocolate in a pan and coat a hard-boiled egg in it until it looks somewhat passable. Then wrap the egg in a couple Cadbury wrappers and wait for your victim to dig in. Gah, disgusting. And now how about something a bit more perverse? Replace the default sounds your victim's computer makes when a USB drive is inserted with something like this.
Oh yeah. Put it back.
You can grab these sounds yourself by checking the links in the description.
Oh, yeah.
Try not to go overboard.
Oh yeah. Put it back. Oh yeah. Put it back.
And here's an annoying one. When your coworker or roommate leaves their computer alone, swap a couple common keys around. Watch and laugh as they try to figure it out. And finally, the poopy toilet bowl of doom. Grab some leftover coffee and pour it into the upper tank of the toilet. When your victim goes to flush, they'll be met with liquid death and despair. Better call a plumber.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. The Future Movement said it will not submit the candidacy of any lawmaker for the elections prior to an agreement among the parties affiliated in the March 14 alliance. Fierce fighting between Syrian rebels and regime forces sparks an exodus of residents from the northern city of Aleppo. 2 people die in Shanghai after contracting a strain of bird flu, a virus contaminating humans for the first time ever. Well, those are your April Fool's headlines. Now, for me and the team here, have a happy April Fool's, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
أعلن استقالة الحكومة.
الاستقالة كان ينبغي أن تحصل منذ زمن طويل.
ماذا عن آلاف الخبراء الروس والإيرانيين ومقاتلي حزب الله؟